Alright, let's continue. So before we write code in our login activity, I'd like us to go to our Gradle file and add a few dependencies that we'll be using. So here underneath our Firebase, let's go ahead and add these three. Feel free to pause and write them. The three libraries are, the first one is for a material dialog library. It just makes the default, it improves on the default library, the default dialogue that Android provides. Second is a material design library by Google. You need this one to work with this one. And finally, we have the Lottie animation library. It's created by Airbnb, and it gives you access to some very nice animations that you can use in your application. All right, go ahead and pause and write those down. And once you've done that, we can go to our login activity and close others. So, what we had done in the last video was to simply connect our widgets with our find views by IDs, etc. And we've written our click listeners for our two buttons. So we'll start with the register activity because it's the simplest one. Really all we're doing when a person clicks register is we're taking them to the register activity. So simple as this, start activity. And we can create the intent right in here. So new intent, register activity, start with the context. Login activity.this, and then we say register activity.class. Simple as that. Now for our login activity, what we need to do is to collect the details that the user typed in. So of course they will be in strings, so we say string, email string to begin with. Is equals to email dot get text dot toString. Next, I'll just duplicate that with Control D and change this to password and this to password. So this gets our whatever the user has typed and puts them into these variables. So the very first thing we do even before we log them in is a bit of validation. We need to make sure that they have actually given us this information. So a simple if statement, and we will use a tool called text utils. Text utils dot is empty, and then we throw in those strings, so email string, and then we say or, and we duplicate the exact same thing. So if you highlight something and then press Ctrl D, it will duplicate what you've highlighted. I'll actually put the or there and get rid of it from the other side. And this one will be, of course, password string. So this condition is checking whether the email string is empty or the password string is empty, because if either of them are empty, we immediately tell our users to provide both the details. Okay, this thing is telling me that we added our libraries, but I forgot to press sync, so I'll go ahead and do that now even as I'm typing this code. Totally forgot to do that. I hope you guys had done it. Either way, so if either of those are empty, let's make it simple and just throw them at toast. So toast.makeText, context of course, and the string will be please enter all details, or rather please fill all fields, and we show it for a short time. And don't forget to put your .show, otherwise it won't show up. And then of course the else part, will actually log them in. So what we can say is we can write login user, and we throw in the email and the password string. So of course this will throw us this error, but as you know now, we can simply click this light bulb and create method login user, within login activity, not anonymous, so within login activity. And not only does it create for us our method, but it gives us the full method signature. So it gives us the two parameters, string email string and string password string, which is very good. All right, so what are we doing in this method? Well, now we can go back to our assistant, and as you'll remember, the one for signing in was step 5. So let's see what it says. To sign in, you simply need to use the sign in with email and password method, and they've gone ahead and used it here. But as you can see, it belongs to the Firebase auth class. So what we can do, all the way at the top, we can say Firebase auth, and we can initialize that here. We can say auth is equals to Firebase auth.getInstance, and then now in our new method, you simply say auth dot sign in with email and password, and you simply pass in those two details, the email and the password, and that's it. With this one line of code, you can log in your user and it will work, but it's not wise to leave it at that, and the guys who gave us these examples did not leave it at that. They also did sign in with email and password, but as you can see, there's a huge chunk of code below that. And why is that? Something may go wrong as you're signing in, and it's good to deal with that, to deal with any errors that might arise. And to do that, we can get rid of the termination, go to the second line and say dot add on complete listener, which actually is the first option, and I'll terminate it there. So as the name implies, as soon as this finishes, whether it was successful or not, this completion listener will run, and within it we can simply say new on complete listener. It will give us this chunk of code, and we can throw in an if statement just as they have done. So if task dot is successful. So this is the task, and it was that the authentication task which is being held in this variable. So if it's successful, then we can sign them in. What have they done here? They've made a log message, which is good practice, and then they've created the user. So Firebase user is equals to get current user, and they update the UI. I didn't mention this before, it's actually also included here on start. They use this update UI. This is just a placeholder. It's not a built-in method or anything. It's just a placeholder. What they're trying to express is that we should send them to the next screen, the next relevant screen. So in this step, we're checking whether the auth state. We're checking the auth state, and if the person was null, for us, we're kicking them off to the login activity. So we're updating the UI, so to speak, to show them the login screen. So this update UI, if you're following along with this code and you're wondering why it wasn't working, it doesn't actually exist. You have to create it yourself or implement a different way. And now we're here. So now when they log in, again, we'll update the UI by sending them to the main activity. Okay, so let's write that code. First, I actually want to copy them a bit by putting the log message. So simply type logd and select that option so that it builds it for you. And I'll change this to tag login, and I'll change this text to login successful. And then I'll create the Firebase user. So Firebase user, current user is equals to auth.getCurrentUser, and then we'll create an intent is equals to new intent context and main activity dot this. Oh, sorry. Seems to be, sorry, yeah, not dot this, class dot class. And we can start activity. Intent. And then, very important, one more line of code, finish. What does finish do? It simply removes this activity, the login activity, from the stack. So a quick explanation. As you move from one activity to another inside an app, the previous activities get added to the stack, what's called a stack of activities. And this allows you to go back. So when you press the back button, you're simply going to the previous item in the stack. That's the way the guys at Android implemented it. But for when you write finish, it will remove that activity from the stack, so that when you press back, you won't go to login activity, you'll go to whatever was before that, which may actually be the home screen. And why is this important? If somebody logs in, and you'll attest this from using apps yourself, if you log into an app and you press back, you shouldn't be able to go back to the login screen, right? You shouldn't be able to log in again, you're already logged into that app. The only way to go back to the login screen is by actually pressing a logout button somewhere in the app itself. So that's why we add the finish line. It's very important because you might log in 2 users. I don't know how that would happen, but it's always good to cover your bases. Alright, so that's the code we'll write for the if statement. Now let's write the else clause. And for the else clause, we can simply say a toast for now. We're going to change all of this later to be a better UX, user experience. What message can we give? For now, something went wrong. And length short. Not sure. Okay, again, this is just placeholder. I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it more, shall we say, modern, more better looking as we go along. Right, we're done with the login activity for now. In the next video, we'll work on the register activity, and then we'll test both of them at the same time. All right, let's continue then.